Hey YouTube, John here, back with another review, and today we're going to be taking a look at the ZC Toys Z1 Quadcopter. Now, this is my first experience with a ZC Toys model, so I really didn't know what to expect, but I gotta say I was definitely pleasantly surprised by it. Now, the Ready to Fly package is going to come complete with the quadcopter, transmitter, screwdriver, prop guards, and a full set of spare props. Really, the only thing you're going to need to supply is 4 AA batteries for the transmitter, and you're ready to fly. Now, for this review, we're going to be taking a look at the non-camera version, but I did want to mention that this model is available with a 2 megapixel camera as well. Now, the transmitter is a full-size transmitter, which personally I prefer, and besides being a little on the light side, it actually feels pretty good in your hands. You have your normal trim buttons here on the right side, so this is your left and right trim, and this is your forward and back trim. However, your left side trim buttons actually control different functions of the quadcopter. So if it had a camera, this would control your still shot and video commands. And then your yaw trim actually controls your lights and your headless mode. So pushing it to the left will turn your lights on and off, and pushing it to the right will engage headless mode. And the headless mode actually works fairly well. But, you know, like all these toy grade quadcopters, I really wouldn't count on it to save me if I got in trouble. But in general, it does seem to work pretty well. Along with the headless mode feature, this quad also features return to home. This is accessed by pushing in on the right stick. And essentially what that will do is use the headless mode heading and pull the stick back. So when you push this, the quadcopter is just going to fly backwards in headless mode, which in theory, if you didn't move, would be back to the pilot. And like the headless mode, it works surprisingly well. But definitely don't fly outside your skill level thinking it's going to bring your model back, because it probably won't. Now, moving back to the shoulder buttons, on your left shoulder button you have your rates, and there's a total of 3 rates with just 1 yaw rate. But the yaw rate is pretty decent. It's not super fast, but definitely more than adequate for the amount of pitch you're going to get with this quadcopter. And finally, the right shoulder button is your flip button. So to flip, you'll simply push the shoulder button in once, input the direction you want to flip, the quadcopter will flip once, and then exit flip mode. And the flips are actually more of a loop than a flip, which is kind of cool. And the quad does recover fairly well from the flip, so all in all, it is a pretty good flipper. The only other thing I did notice is that the quadcopter doesn't really accept any inputs for about a half a second after you perform a flip. So that means acrobatics like barrel rolls and stuff like that might be a little bit difficult. And then, as always, the last thing I want to cover with the transmitter is calibration of the accelerometers. So you're going to go ahead and bind the quadcopter to the transmitter, and you're going to go and put it into high rates. So you'll press this once, twice, you'll hear 3 beeps. That means you're in high rates. And you'll go ahead and take both sticks and move them down and to the right. And you'll see the lights flash in the quadcopter, indicating that your accelerometers have been recalibrated. Now, moving to the quadcopter, the first thing you're going to notice with this is the very unique body design. And you definitely have to give ZC Toys a lot of credit for stepping outside the box and bringing a new body design to the market. Because let's be honest, most manufacturers are taking the same general quadcopter design, giving it a slight variation and calling it their own, where, you know, seeing someone like this come out with a completely different design, whether you like it or not, is definitely refreshing. Now, that being said, I think the aerodynamics of this body tend to hinder its flight characteristics, because you have all this flat surface area on top here. So as air flows across the top, it tends to push the quadcopter down to the ground more than normal. And this can make it really difficult to fly in heavy winds. And I've also noticed that the reverse effect happens when you spin it around. So if you're moving forward and you yaw it fast and you're still carrying reverse momentum, now the air is hitting the rear and creating lift and raising it way up in the air. And I'll try to demonstrate that in the flight test. But, you know, you definitely want to make sure that you're not around too many trees when you're flying real aggressively, because it tends to gain altitude rapidly. The prop guards that are supplied with the model work pretty well. I didn't test them a whole lot, only because I only fly models this size outside, and prop guards will tend to do nothing but get you hung up in trees. But in general, they're nice and flexible. They're not going to break. They just simply have these 3 studs in the top, and they just push right onto the arm. So super easy to put on, and super easy to take off. So I definitely love that. Definitely a nice touch. That being said, if you are a beginner, or if this is your first time flying this quad, I would recommend using the prop guards, because the props are really flexible, and they don't break, but they tend to bend. So I have a couple props with creases in them, just from crashes and bending them. So definitely want to keep that in mind if it's your first time flying it. Another great feature of this quadcopter is the on-off switch, and it seems trivial, but I love quadcopters with on-off switches, so it's definitely a great feature to have. And we'll turn it on and show you the LEDs, and it's got really nice bright LEDs. It's got green in the front, red in the back, and it has this blue one here in the rear. And you can kind of tell here, even in the daylight, that the LEDs shine really nice through the white body. I'm not sure how it would look on the black body, but with the white body, they shine through really nice, and this thing is an excellent night flyer. The battery is a 3.7 volt, 750 milliamp hour battery with the JST connector on it, and it takes roughly an hour and 15 minutes to charge. And with that, you're going to get about 6-minute flight times with the prop guards on, and that'll extend to about 6.5 minutes with the prop guards off. And you get a 15-second low voltage warning. So you have a little warning before the quadcopter decides to land itself. Other than that, that pretty much covers everything on the bench here. So let's bring this thing outside and see what it can do. All right, we're outside with the ZC Toys Z1 Quadcopter, and we'll start it off in low rates. So this full low rates pitch. And like I said, we only have one yaw rate, so we'll bring it over here and we'll give it, we'll demonstrate the yaw real quick. So this full yaw, you know, not terribly slow, definitely more than adequate for the pitch you'll have. We'll switch it into mid rates. It definitely gets a lot more sporty in mid rates. Do a quick lap around the yard mid. It's a little windy out today. It's pretty much winter here in Massachusetts, so the wind's starting to pick up. And then this is high rates here. And in high rates, you can see it's hard to fight that aerodynamic force of wanting to drive straight into the ground. And then I'll try to demonstrate here. You know, the reverse effect occurs when you spin it. So we'll go and we'll spin it, and you see it raise way up. So, you know, you definitely want to just keep that in mind when you're flying around trees. You know, it does gain a lot of altitude when you spin it. There it goes again. You know, not a deal breaker, but definitely something to keep in mind when you're flying. So let's try some flips. Like I said, the flips are kind of like loops. See if I can get a good shot from the back here. More of a loop than a flip. We'll do a back flip. So not too bad at flipping. I think the only thing we have to demonstrate now is the return to home. Like I said, the return to home is touch and go, but I have found it to be pretty good. So let's bring it out in the yard. We'll yaw it randomly. Oh, there we go. It didn't work too well that time. So it did lose its heading. We'll bring it closer just to demonstrate that. So return to home, and it's flying directly away from us. So definitely don't count on the return to home to save you, because more than likely it won't. But all in all, that really covers everything with this quadcopter. As far as flight characteristics go, it reminds me of the H2O from GP Toys. Just a kind of a more docile flyer, easy to fly. I definitely recommend it for beginners. You know, it does have a little more forward pitch than the GP Toys, so you know, you won't get bored with it very fast. It's definitely a unique quadcopter, so you know, it definitely has some pros. So yeah, I hope this video was helpful to someone. If it was, please give it a thumbs up. Definitely leave a comment down below. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.